For your better comprehension of overall techniques, let me emphasize that the backlog refinement includes story decomposition and story elaboration. As we already explained, backlog refinement in the module Selecting Agile Techniques in the Context of Communications, let us now dive deep into the story decomposition technique. Story decomposition is used to represent the requirements for a solution at the appropriate level of detail and is aligned to desired outcomes. Simply put, every story that is too large or is hard to elaborate is a candidate to be drilled down into smaller levels of details. At the lowest level to each story, the approach adds acceptance criteria. If we take a look from the initiative horizon perspective, story decomposition is used to support decisions about which features to deliver, in what order, and how much of the feature needs to be delivered in order to reach the desired outcome. On the other hand, story decomposition decomposes epics into individual stories when applied at the delivery horizon. There are 4 common elements that you need in order to perform a story decomposition. At the highest level of business requirements, there are solution goals. They are drivers for moving the initiative in the desired direction. So, solution goals are decomposed into smaller level components. Usually, those are groups of functionalities and capabilities that should be delivered to the customer and should provide them value. These components are known as minimal marketable features, or MMFs. When we continue with decomposing MMFs into smaller components, we come to the stories. During the initial decomposition, at the early stages of the project, mainly large stories are identified. Over time, the requirements are likely to be evolved, so at the early stages, there is no need to decompose to the lowest level of detail. Only when needed, the stories are further elaborated, and business analyst practitioners are focused on defining acceptance criteria for each of the selected stories as the lowest level of detail. Acceptance criteria are seen as conditions of satisfaction needed to validate a user story. Now I want you to pause the course. Look into your backlog and pick out the story that looks like the biggest one. Just for practice, try to decompose it following the elements we just listed. When you are done, unpause the course and let's round up your knowledge of this technique by covering the pros and cons of using it. Story decomposition helps to keep the big picture context. Without losing yourself in the details of the user stories, your team can stay focused on the project's goals and objectives and trace implemented features back to the original business objectives. Besides, when you break the product into MMFs, it allows you to make release-level plans, and it provides you with insight into the development of the solution. In the end, if there is a need for some external activities like user training, story decomposition helps you coordinate them. As for the situations that need to be addressed when decomposing stories, one of the most common is to know when to stop. Finding the right balance in decomposing just enough stories in a given moment is the most critical skill to possess. Moreover, decomposition should be done based on customer value features, but there are situations when the teams get lost in decomposing based on process, architecture, or procedure.